Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Joe Cedar. I am a partner at HKA and a board member at the Chicago Building Congress, the CBC, as some of you may know it as. The CBC is excited to partner with two other great Chicago industry organizations, the Chicagoland Association of General Contractors, CAGC, as well as ASA Chicago, the Association of Subcontractors and Affiliates. To bring you this exciting panel discussion, how diversity helps your company and your people grow and succeed. The panel is going to talk about a number of topics that I'm sure we'll find insightful and impactful. Before I introduce the panel, I'd like to say thank you and introduce Jay Rowell, who many of you may know, who's the Executive Director of Hire 360 and whose building we're using today, and it's on the way to being even more beautiful than it is right now. Jay.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for coming out today. Please, we didn't think anyone would mind our dust, considering you all work in construction, but obviously this is very much underway. So Hire 360, for those of you who aren't familiar, it's a very unique partnership of the largest developers, general contractors, and trade unions in the city of Chicago, focused on diversifying the construction industry. And we're very excited to have all four pillars of our program that will be housed here. So we are helping to create diverse supply firms. We'll be able to give space to those firms, help them scale up in warehouse space. And Deborah on our team runs that program. We help create the first black-owned HVAC supplier in the Midwest with $1 million loan, trucking arrangements, partnership with Mitsubishi and Trane. So look forward to be doing a lot more of that work here. We're also scaling up 163 diverse contractors, and that program will be here as well. And we have a work-ready adult program as well. We've helped about 333 people get into different trades, apprentices programs here, doing a lot of that virtually and in McCormick Place. So look forward to having some space here for that, as well as our youth engagement. I'd really be remiss if I didn't thank our board member, Mike Maher, for taking the time out to do the panel, and also Jonathan Jones, who's on our board, for coming here today. And really a big thank you to all of our industry partners. The only way we are able to do this work is through the opportunities that you provide us, and for a lot of help on this construction site. So if anyone's interested in getting a tour, happy to give those. We are hoping to be here in about January, and very excited about this. And again, probably the most important note, the bathrooms are upstairs, so you can go up the staircase there. It's just a logistical note. So really appreciate you guys all coming out, and thank you so much, and look forward to hearing the great panel.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks again for the space. And now to the panel, the reason you all are here to hear what they have to say. Juan Pablo Prieto, over there, who has just raised his hand. He is the proud son of Colombian immigrants, a native Chicagoan, a proud CPS graduate, and currently serves as the Director of Diversity Programs and Disadvantaged Business Enterprise DBA Liaison Officer for the Chicago Transit Authority. Juan Pablo joined the CTA in 2014, and since 2018, he oversees the CTA's DBE Small Business Enterprise and Labor Compliance and Workforce Initiative programs. Jimmy Akintande, who is right here. Jimmy is president and CEO of Ujamaa Construction, a fast-growing construction firm in Chicago and Atlanta, diversifying its operations across various markets since 2002. His vision is to provide exceptional, socially responsible construction services, earning respect and trust from clients, with over 2/3 of the business coming from repeat clients. Under his leadership, Ujamaa has grown to over 100 employees, generating over $1 million in revenue in 2022, and is currently part of the Lakeside Alliance, contributing to the Barack Obama Presidential Library construction. Kiana Barrett oversees the development and execution of Sterling Bay's community integration and business diversity strategies. Kiana has over 20 years of experience in government affairs, strategic communications, public policy, and stakeholder cultivation. Prior to joining Sterling Bay, she served as Deputy Director of Ready Chicago, Chief of Staff for several Chicago city council members, Director of Communications for the Congressional Black Caucus in Washington, D.C., National Press Secretary for Rainbow Push, Director of External Affairs for DuSable Museum, and Interim Chief of Communication for CPS. She's a proud South Side resident and a mother of two. Tomas Huerta moved to Chicago from Mexico in 2000 and is currently the president of Anagnos Door Company. He's both a member of the board of directors at ASA, as well as a liaison for the Education and Technology Committee, as well as a member of the Dealer Advisory Board for Clopay Corporation. Mike Maher, you already heard a little about earlier, is the president of McHugh Construction Company, having spent his entire 36-year career at McHugh, starting as a project engineer. Among his many civic engagements, Mike is the former president and current executive vice president of the 100 Club of Illinois, as well as past president of the Chicagoland AGC, and a founding board member and treasurer of Hire 360, where we are today. And last but certainly not least, our moderator, Kelly Hogan, serves as an insurance and risk management advisor with Alliant, working with contractors and on large construction projects. Kelly sits on the board of the Chicagoland AGC and chairs the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee for ASA Chicago, where she takes pride in her dedication to making the construction and insurance industries more inclusive to all. Okay, the panel plans to speak. I was trying to go quickly because you don't want to hear me talk, you want to hear these guys talk, right? So the panel plans to speak for about 45 minutes, after which time there'll be a Q&A. And then after that, please do stick around for drinks and food and more opportunities to network with everyone that's here. And at the very back end, I'm going to promise to thank our sponsors, but I don't know all of them by name right now, and I'll get that figured out. Kelly.
All right, excellent. Thanks for the intro. I will say the last D&I event that I spoke at, I almost dropped the F-bomb in the first 10 minutes of my speech. And then this one, I'm the only one up here with a glass of wine. So I'm like batting 1,000 on these events so far. But thank you everyone for coming today. We're really excited. We're really excited to be in this awesome space and that we got this awesome panel together. What's really cool about this group is obviously it's a diverse group, not only as far as individuals that are on it, but also the companies that are a part of it. We have developers, we have general contractors, specialty contractors, but also all of us here are in different parts of the DE&I journey at our respective businesses. So I think to start, it might be helpful to kind of just go down the line and say a little bit about, where you are in your DE&I journey at your company, and kind of what the kind of catalyst was for getting started. So, Jimmy, if you'd like to start us off.
We start with Jimmy, huh?
You sat next to me, so now you're in the hot seat.
I have enough people telling me that they're going to ask me all the hard questions. I didn't think I was going to start on the right. Thank you. I think our D&I journey is a little different for us as a minority, obviously, general contractor. There's a different expectation in terms of it can't be a practice. It's got to be woven into how we do business, and I think that's what we've done over the last 22 years. It's just what we do. It's the people we know. It's how we it's how we do everything in our business. It's the subcontractor pool that we qualify, the vendor pool that we qualify. It's looking at DEI as an integral part of how we do business every day and nothing special. So it's a lot easier for me because most other folks are beginning to pivot into it to recognize that it's important. It's just always been what we've done. So that's the easier part of the way we look at it. Thomas?
Thank you. So 18 years ago, the company only spoke one language, English. There was only one nationality, everybody from the States. And it was a male-dominated construction trade. Since then, we have hired people from about 8 countries. We speak about 6 different languages in the company. And the ratio now, there are more females working at the office than males. So it's not a box that we normally check, it's a way of doing business. It's not something that we're doing because we have to, it's because we really want to do it.
Great, thanks for the opportunity to be here. So, at CTA, we're a municipal agency, and we're required by law to have a DBE program. The DBE program has existed for decades at the federal level, but really our change came in 2012 when we did Red Line South, and we re-envisioned what outreach was in terms of the DBE program. So having the program, certifying, firms, putting a goal on a contract, that's just the baseline of what you're supposed to do. We took it a step further and said, we need to figure out how to support our DBEs and help them understand what it's like to do business with CTA. For anyone in the room who's done business for CTA, we're a tough customer, right? And we want our small businesses to come in eyes wide open to understand what it is to do work with us and to be, not just win a contract and perform on it, but we want them to be successful and grow. So we've established a lot of different programs to meet that standard. We have our Small Business Educational Series, which is a 9-part cohort-style program that's taught by industry experts. And when I say industry experts, I mean our primes. Our prime contractors and consultants come in and teach classes since they have direct experience performing on CTA projects to get small businesses ready. We have our Building Small Businesses program, which was piloted on our current mega project, RPM, and the Red and Purple modernization, and launched as a full program in July of last year, where we help firms with their financial capacity and technical assistance. For the small businesses out there, I'm preaching to the choir here, you all know access to capital is a struggle. So we want to make sure that small businesses have the access to the capital they need to perform on our jobs, to make payroll, to be able to buy equipment, buy supplies, until we are able to pay the prime and they can pay the sub. So we have to be an active participant in that. And really, I have to credit President Carter, the CTA president. When he came, the mandate was diversity has to be interwoven in everything that we do. It can't be something that we think about at the end when we're about to award the contract or put it out to bid. It has to be something that we thought about in the forefront. So now, after that, after he came, diversity gets meetings with the Chief Infrastructure Officer to think about how we're developing the scope and how that's going to affect small business participation, DB participation, and also workforce participation. We have 3 different workforce goals that we set on our contracts to target different aspects of underrepresented communities. We target those that are under and unemployed. We have a goal for apprentices, and then we have a goal for residents of economically disadvantaged areas. So again, to create those opportunities. But that all starts in the beginning as we're developing the scope, so that when the contract's out to bid, the contracting community understands our priorities.
Good evening. Happy to be a part of such an august body of panelists and in the midst of such a diverse audience. So it goes without saying, and I know I'm preaching to the choir when I say this, the commercial real estate and construction industry has historically been woefully underrepresented by persons of color and women. And so given that, Sterling Bay being an owner really saw an opportunity to set a new standard for what inclusionary business practices looks like, not just in words, but in deed. And so fortunately, they had an appetite to embrace a new business philosophy and understanding that it's not just about checking a box or not just about it being charitable, but it being about a good business proposition and how to create value-added propositions. I would have to say that diversity officers have almost become the career du jour post the social unrest that our country experienced 2 years ago. Many companies increased the number of diversity departments and offices they created. And in some cases, that was more of a reactionary move than it was one that was of merit. And so fortunately, we've been able to fortify relationships within the community to really understand the business needs, to understand the barriers that exist for minority and women-owned firms to be able to just even introduce their services and who they are, to know about bid opportunities in ample time to be able to construct a meaningful bid, to make sure that packages are broken down in a way that it's palatable for small firms, to make sure that we're creating a web of inclusion with some of our larger GC partners and the subcontracting community, and to grow those subs into prime opportunities. And so it's been an interesting ride, to say the least, but it has been one that we're hopeful will set the bar for the industry going forward.
Thank you. And Kiana, I've seen Sterling Bay over the years. You've brought a new vigor to it, and you've done a great job with it. As far as where we are in the DEI journey, I think Jimmy said it best, It has to be who you are, and I'm really proud of the fact that in our history, in our company, back in the late 60s and early 70s, we sponsored the first minorities in the Iron Workers Union, and that was then. And then what are we doing today? Our chairperson is female. We have a general counsel for McHugh Concrete, we have a general counsel for McHugh Construction. They're both female. We have 2 executive vice presidents, one is female. Half of our project managers are female, and half of those are African American. And again, it's not by design. It just happened organically, and to have an organization that creates and fosters that, I think is special.
Excellent, thank you, everyone. So a lot of, what was mentioned was supplier diversity, was checking boxes. So I think supplier diversity is a lot of times one of those aspects of DE&I that becomes a box-checking exercise. I'd like to just kind of hear a little bit about your formal supply diversity programs, how they kind of came to be, and some of maybe the challenges that we face. So Mike, if you want to
Sure.
answer that?
Sure, we have a formal program that involved with all potential partners, whether minority or otherwise. All of our subcontractors have to go through a pre-qualification. When we look at JVs and joint ventures, we have a kind of a heightened path program where we go through and look at what the companies bring to the table, and especially we've had many minority joint ventures, and they've all been very successful, but it's all about we have to decide what share of risk, what's financial strength, appetite for risk, and going through all those factors. But the bottom line is it's much like pre-qualification criteria. We look at that first, but we also have a lot of flexibility to it, especially with minority subcontractors who may not have the financial resources of other companies, trying to make room and opportunities for them.
And Mike, is there certain things that you look for when looking at ME/WB partners that, really make them stand out, or green flags?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've met so many great MBE firms that I've worked with. All these firms are great potential partners. What distinguishes them is technical skills. I love meeting an owner who does estimating. That shows strong technical skills. They know what they're getting into. I've met many who, and this is not a red flag, but it's somewhat concerning when they don't have the technical skills and they're representing that they are a company, but they have no idea how to do the takeoff for cabinets or flooring. That's something that concerns us. But when we meet those companies that do, that's like, wow, this is great. This is the type of people we want to get to know.
Makes sense. Jimmy, do you want to speak a little bit about your supplier diversity program? Then maybe on the flip side, some of those red flags or some things that make you hesitate a bit when looking at partners?
Yeah, I think for us, in terms of our program, it's an organic process. I think I started out by, one of the things that I found is with smaller contractors, they seem to be more hungry, they have a different appetite for risk, and just a lot more excited about the work. You see the passion in how they're trying to build their businesses, no different from when I started my business 22 years ago. So we've always looked for smaller contractors coming into the marketplace. We have a small, medium, large work program within our organization. So it's great when I walk into a room, the first thing I ask is, what do you want, small, medium, or large? We have something to fit you. And I think the great thing is over the last 20 years to see small contractors start, grow large. So for example, in the industry now, I think there is one large plumbing African-American contractor, SCM, who just started about 7 years ago. I've known him we used to drink together at a bar 20 years ago. So that's how the relationship started. And I remembered when he came to me saying, hey, I am ready to sign a union contract. Can I come work with you when we started? And when he started, the first job he did was with us as a union contractor. We were doing some CPS program, and it was doing some roof drains, maybe 20, 30,000 size work. And he started from a single plumber, and over 4 years, you could see he got to 12, 14 people. Right now, SCM is the plumbing contractor on the Obama Presidential Library. So those are the success stories. Same thing, Nicole Ryan with Ryan Electric started with us about 8 years ago. White female electrical contractor. She was in our small market program. They were doing all kinds of work for us. and especially a lot of our renovation work at existing clients, University of Chicago, city colleges. And right now, she's the small contractor for University of Chicago. I mean, so she did such a great work working for us that the university went to our, to do all their small work. So we look for successes that are real, that are lasting, and it makes it easy when I, call either one of them and they, like Sean, and I say, hey, I understand the plumbing is going to be open up their union program. What are you going to do with trying to bring some new people into the industry? I don't have to sell it. He understands why it's important, not to me and everybody else. So when it's part of your DNA, yeah, you go drinking with the guys after a while and the girls, and you get to know them that way. But the truth about it is, it's just part of what you do. And I think what's rewarding is when you see those businesses grow over time, and especially if you care about our city. And I'm a diehard Chicago fan. When you have the passion for the city, like I do, you recognize that the issue we have, it's not crime, it's jobs. It's something to do. And historically, right, we all know small businesses will hire more diverse workforce. We have the flexibility to go into those communities and have an impact. I mean, so when you think about, we want safety in the city, we want some consistency in the city, it's a beautiful city, we want everybody to enjoy, from the south side to the west side to downtown. Well, how do you make that impact? You create jobs, you create opportunities, you create small businesses, and you give them a path to grow, to extend. And it's not the right thing to do, it's our humanity. It's why we wake up every day. And construction, folks as a whole, we spend a ridiculous amount of time on work. I don't think anybody works a 40-hour week here. So why do you get up? There's nothing better than to see a Charles Freeman who worked for us 15 years ago and all the things that he returned to. Or Alyssa Wilson, who was an intern with us and is now one of my key people within the organization. And they're just good people. So it's our humanity. It's why we have a heart, a soul. You reach out and you connect and you get to know people. And some people call it a program. I just call it living.
I love it. That's fantastic. I think the success stories are probably the most impactful thing that we could hear. Kiana, from the developer side, would you mind sharing some of the successes that you guys have had?
Sure. Well, as Jimmy talked about, it's certainly about building and growing capacity, and that's such a huge piece of the puzzle. It's interesting because my father used to tell me that people do business with folks that they know, they like, and they trust. And so one of the propositions that I made to our team at Sterling Bay was, how about we get to know, like, and trust a new crop of talent? And that is an important piece of moving the needle in a meaningful way and creating sustainable growth and change. And so for us, it's about partnerships. We have a Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Council that is comprised of 16 independent advocacy groups and assist agencies from across the city. And they serve as our thought partners because they have their hands and fingers on the pulse of what's happening in the marketplace and can help us better understand how we can align to address those needs in a meaningful way. So that's very important for us. We have developed a supplier diversity program because typically the focus has been on construction. Companies, as Mike indicated, and McHugh is one of our very faithful partners, we evaluate our GC selection based upon their value system and their track record of success and their very intentionality around how they are going to engage and not just meet 26 and 6 or 30 and 10, but my question is always, how are you going to meet that? How are you going to really make sure that you're bringing in new talent? And so we've even started to evaluate from our networking sessions, how many of those firms that come out, and I know many of you have come out, and you get invitations to come out, but you question, is this going to be a worthwhile use of my time? Are all these, contracts already pre-baked where they've got their already packaged amount of subs? So what we've started to do to really challenge both ourselves and to appraise our program is to chart how many firms attend. Of those firms that attend, how many of them actually bid the job? And then from those that bid the job, who gets awarded the job? And then how many of those are new business ventures that were not a part of the initial collection? And that's helping us grow and hold ourselves accountable to make sure that we are really being intentional about inclusion, about how we're expanding the marketplace, and as Jimmy said, how we're addressing some of the issues that are very fundamental, which boils down to jobs and opportunities.
That's fantastic. You mentioned, tapping into those kind of underrepresented groups or groups of individuals that haven't typically, been tapped into previously. Juan Pablo, do you want to talk about on the public side, what you guys are doing in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, we're constantly looking at contracts. We spend a lot of money in construction, but we contract for almost about any service you can think of. And we're constantly looking at those contracts to say, how can we create small business participation on here, whether it's through a DBE goal, a mentor-protege agreement. Sometimes we're working with the user groups to break apart contracts and say, this part may not have any ability to put a DBE goal on, but we can set this entire contract aside for 100% small business participation. And so we're creating that where if we would have put it out to the market, maybe we would have got 10% small business, and now we're getting 100% on a specific part. We're also constantly looking for new partners, right? So I love that you're looking at new firms that are coming in to Sterling Bay projects. We're doing the same thing. We have our current mega project up north, the red and purple modernization, and we set out, it's a $2.1 billion program, $1.2 billion for the design build alone. And we set out to say we want to have as many DBEs participate on this as we can, and we want to grow the amount of DBEs that have come to do business with CTA. So far, we have 96 unique DBE firms that have been awarded subcontracts to the tune of over $243 million. 40 of those firms had never done business with CTA before RPM. So we're really proud of that number. We have a brand new mega project right around the corner, Red Line Extension. So we're hoping to replicate those numbers and if anything, do better on that. Because again, we want to bring more firms into the fold, more firms that have never done business with CTA, teach them how to do it, and then hopefully they're successful on one of our contracts.
Excellent. It sounds like you guys are having success so far.
Yes.
And Tomas, I don't want to skip over you because I know that a lot of our audience today is made up of subcontractors. So I'd love to hear kind of a story from you as far as, the success that you guys have seen in Anagnos and just in your career in general, as far as DE&I.
So like I said in the beginning, 18 years ago, the company was primarily one language, one nationality. And 18 years ago, I was working at Argonne National Lab with the Department of Defense and Department of Energy, and I found myself looking for a job. So one Sunday, my garage door broke, and I looked at the yellow pages. Well, 20 years ago, we didn't have the phones. So I found a door company, start with an A, Anagnos, so how difficult can be this? So I didn't know the company. It was just literally around the block. So I went there on a Sunday. I asked for the parts that I needed to fix the door. And the guy working there said, I'm not going to sell you the part. It's too difficult for you. And say, listen, I'm not in a position to buy anything like very expensive. I don't need to hire you to do the job. I'm going to do it. So he said, well, have you experience doing it? I said, how difficult can be to do a door? So,
It was last words.
yeah, I hear that now all the time. So he said, I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to offer you a job. If you're looking for work, I'm going to offer you a job. And he said, what are you doing? I said, what do you want me to do? I can tell you what I am, but it's just, I need a job. He said, can you sweep the floors? Like, yep. He said, hire, not a problem. So later on, Kay find out that I had a background in engineering and chemistry, so she told Rich, he cannot be doing the floors. So they moved me to a management, and 18 years later,
Wow.
here I am as the second president of Anagnos.
That is a great story.
That is a great story.
Fantastic story.
Wow.
So Kay and Rich took a chance on me. I didn't fit their mold. I've been in construction for 20 years prior to that, but nothing to do with doors. So they look beyond that. They look into what I could bring, speaking a different language, communicating with different people. And of course, every time that somebody call and they speak Spanish and say, okay, we got a guy who speaks Spanish, so here, what is it? And I was told, whenever you have a chance, we have 2 different associations that you can leave for us. And say, just leave, go to ASA, find out who can hire a chemist or a GC, meet a GC that they're looking for somebody, an engineer. And I said, no, you give me the chance, I'm going to stick with you. And since then, it was kind of not a perfect marriage, but it grew in the way that, hey, we can trust somebody else. Let's see if we can trust somebody that speaks a different language, someone that perhaps is a broken language and I don't speak the right English, I don't say the right things sometimes, but I can do the things right that you're looking for. And like I said, we're very happy, we're extremely happy with the people that we have in the office. They have been bringing us business because they want to work and they want to reach out. They don't want to reach up because sometimes they don't want that. They want just to work, but they want to reach out to people, to bring work, and to tell them that it's okay for a woman, a girl, a young lady from a different country to work in the construction area. Sometimes they know that the construction is a male-dominated field, and it's hard for somebody, can be intimidated to somebody, but they have been helping us, and I'm always looking for someone who can do the job. I don't hire gender, I hire talent.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think I better start sweeping the floors at the Alliant office. I think that's the moral of the story there. But thank you for sharing. We've talked a lot about its successes. We've talked about a lot about, what goes really well with DE&I. But I think we definitely need to touch on some of the challenges that we've all faced and that the industry continues to face. So Mike, if you want to start us off, kind of just by talking about some of your concerns regarding DE&I over the next few years, 5-10 years.
Sure. I think DEI has to, Jimmy talked about it a little at the beginning. Somebody reminded me, back in the day, they used to talk about quality control, and the thing to do is bring that to the front of the meeting and make that a topic. And I think the same thing has to be done with DEI. But I also think DEI positions the leaders and at times have limited authority. And I think they need to have the authority to drive DEI results. I think that's really important. I think there's also concerns about lack of enough DE&I staff to get results. Overall, I think another potential challenge is leadership not completely failing to take responsibility for DEI results, saying, well, no, I have a DEI person. That's not the way it works. But overall, I'm actually really optimistic about the DEI future. I think when I look at where we are today into where we were years ago, particularly like the CAGC. I mean, for the CAGC is just a great story of Chicagoland Association of General Contractors, where they were 15, 20 years ago, and where they are today, a co-sponsor of Hire 360 and making that happen. I think I'm optimistic about the future.
Thank you. Kiana or Juan Pablo, would you like to?
So, to build off of what Mike talked about, when And just looking at Chicago alone, over the next 10 years with the volume of mega projects that we have, from Lincoln Yards to the 78, to the Obama Center, to the casino, there is a potential to generate, roughly $150 billion in economic mobility throughout the city. So that's huge, especially as we talk about our city's budget crisis, and you're hearing those numbers already being circulated. And you think about the volume of jobs, both construction and permanent jobs that will come from those projects. And the fact that each of them has a MWBE participation goal. And we have to really be thoughtful about, do we have the supply to meet the demand?
Yeah, that's a good point.
How are we, and that's why, Hire 360 is such a valuable tool to be cultivating and introducing the trades to young people. I always say young people aspire to be what they see. And if they don't see individuals that look like them in certain occupations, it's not even on their radar screen to think about. I was just having a conversation earlier. My son is a freshman in college now. Well, the collegiate pathway is not for every student. And so the trades and making sure that the CTE programs in our high schools are robust and strong, because it's really going to be important for us as an industry to think very strategically and boldly about how we are creating real, sustainable, and measurable opportunities for individuals to not only compete, but to thrive in these industries, and not just in the construction side, but professional services. And so making sure that we're socializing and creating opportunities in internal operations as well. So the question for me and the concern is always, how are we building a bench of talent to meet the demand and the opportunities that we will have coming before us?
I completely agree, right? That's the challenge that I see that's most within our control, is how do we build more small businesses, more DBEs, grow that pool of DBEs. We have DBEs that graduate, right? Graduate out of the program, which is the goal, right? Is for have you graduate just like Jimmy did, and then continue on and compete in the general contracting market. But not every DBE can do that. Some come back into the program and out. We want to help you grow, but then we also on the back end have to grow more firms that can fill that. Like you said, there's billions and billions of dollars coming to the market. Are we going to be able to meet our goals? CTA has very aggressive goals on the DBE side, and we want to make sure we can meet those. Same thing on the workforce side, right? We have aggressive goals on our workforce side, and thank you to organizations like Hire 360 that are helping us. They're one of our workforce partners, get individuals the training that they need to fill those skill gaps to then compete for these opportunities on CTA projects, on other projects, private and public, so that they can build that career in construction. The challenge that I'm more worried about that is less in our control are the legal challenges that have recently come up against the programs, right? We know that the Supreme Court recently had a decision against affirmative action, and we've already heard that folks are going to use that decision to now start challenging, and they have challenged the Small Business Administration's 8A program, right? The MBDA program. The DB program is next. We're going to see a challenge to it. So how do we prepare for that challenge of when the DB program gets struck down at the Supreme Court level? CTA has been preparing for years in strengthening our small business enterprise program. So I encourage the owners out there to think about a race and gender neutral program that's based on economics, that if the DBE, MWBE programs get struck down, that we can pivot quickly to a small business program and still support those contractors that are out there that need these programs to be able to survive. And it's not just the business owners that are going to be affected, it's all the employees that they employ, right? It's all the trades workers that are going to be all of a sudden out of work when these programs get struck down. We want to be able to be there to support them and to make sure that we're still creating a space for them to survive.
I think, if I can jump on that, some people see challenges, I see opportunities. I think the marketplace is going through a correction of some sort, and it's rewarding diversity and experience and right mindset. We recently interviewed for a project, and it was for domestic women's shelter on the west side. And, all right, so I'm walking with our team. We, like most people, do your prep. We're ready for the interview, and as we come up the elevator, we must have been a little early because the team in front of us was coming out of the elevator. So they were coming out of the elevator, typical excitement at the end of every interview, right? They're high-fiving and really upbeat. They felt really good about their interview, and I was like, oh, okay, we gotta be careful. Big name, not you guys, Mike. but
I'd
big
remember, and I never get confident.
Yeah, it's a big name. And so we walk in, and here we are. We go through the interview. And presenting on our team is a woman project manager, Black, woman engineer, Black, Hispanic superintendent, woman, and it's a domestic shelter. And it wasn't because we were trying to. They were available at the time in our office, but amazing women to work with. I was ridiculously proud to put that team in front of the owner. And as we sat there, architect, ownership, members of the board was an all-female team, right? Nobody planned it. So we come out of it, and we got the job in a couple of weeks, but the team in front of us had 6 white guys. And they were high-fiving each other in the lobby. They didn't see anything wrong with that team. It even occurred to them that maybe we should try somebody else. Maybe we should look into our bench and make sure that we're bringing all the talent in front of us. Ernest and I are working on a project on the south side. We're building a multi-family housing with an all-African-American team, project manager, superintendent, engineer, right in Woodland. 30 years, first time I've ever seen that. And again, it's looking for, recognizing that the talent out here is not just what it used to be. It's allowing yourself to be open to see talent in other people and some of the greatness that's out in the marketplace. And Yannette, I had the chance to work with her. They don't get any better than her. So again, and I could go all through this room and some of the great people I've had a chance to work with over the last 30 years. And I think the industry is beginning to recognize that, to begin to say, okay, what else can you do besides just the basic? And I think there's room for everybody. It's not one or the other. But I'm encouraged in what I see in the marketplace, and I think the market is beginning to reward difference just because you're not going to approach the same problem the same way when you have multiple people sitting on the desk, and you're making sure that the minority or and sometimes it can be the white guy who's the minority on your table, but you're making sure that he has a voice, right? There's this place that you bring the very best talent and the very best thinking that you have, and it's this openness that allows people to express and grow. And I think you'll find that there's amazing talent in this world if you open yourself to giving yourself a chance to think differently.
I completely agree. I think the opportunity is certainly there, and I think, that's why everybody's here today, is to kind of hear about the thought leaders in the space and what you guys are doing really well. So, we're getting kind of close to time as far as, opening up to questions, but one kind of final, which kind of goes off of what you were saying, Jimmy, is just a final piece of advice that everybody has for everyone in the audience on kind of, whether it's getting going on a DE&I program or, really kind of jump-starting a program that you already have in place. How can people kind of see more success with this? So, Mike, we'll start with you on the end this time.
Gosh, okay, if I'm a small company, I don't have the effort to have a full DEI program, what can you do? And I think I referred to it earlier. Move it up on your priority list, make it first thing in meetings, talk about it, and see what you can do. It's these companies that have these, as Jimmy talked about, this blend, those are the ones that are gonna be strong and survive and thrive in the future. And you mentioned Hire 360. When we started that a couple of years ago, the whole vision is get more minorities in the trades. The times are perfect. We got an aging white workforce. This is the time. And let's get some of these people out of the neighborhoods that are not great places that you can thrive. And but I think that would be my thoughts. Kiana?
So I'm going to step outside of the norm and build off of a point that Juan raised as it pertains to affirmative action. And one thing that we all have in common is that we are consumers. And so I would really encourage us to be very attentive to our elected officials and public policy, because there was a letter that was sent to 100 Fortune 500 CEOs by 13 Republican senators, basically reminding them that it is against the law, based upon the recent Supreme Court decision, to have programs that are designed around race inclusion. And so what you're starting to see is some companies are starting to step back from their diversity programs because they fear what that might mean for them. Well, we need to be monitoring those companies very closely, because they should be on our target list to not support, to not shop, and to not spend and invest our money in. That's very important, number one. But we also need to make sure that we are electing individuals that are committed to making sure that we have programs and resources that are going to support programs that we've talked about today. That's very, very important. Now, on the flip side, I'll say, you know, it's important that there's just not the announcement or declaration of a diversity officer or program. You have to have a budget. If there is no dollars behind that position, then that is simply there to be symbolic. In order, and I can speak from experience, the only way you can impact meaningful change is if there is an investment of dollars and there's a line item on that company's budget. And those are the caliber of questions that need to be asked and that we need to hold one another accountable for if we really do want to change the landscape.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. When I got to CTA in 2014, we had 12 staff. We've now grown to 21 in my department. And because we make the case every time, we have a lot of work to do. You're asking us to do a lot around helping small businesses, bringing them into CTA, supporting them, creating workforce goals. We need people, and we've made that case to upper, to senior leadership. It's like, we need a bigger budget. We need more people because there's a lot to do. So I can't agree more. If you want to tell me how important diversity or DE&I is, show me the money. Show me the money in your budget. Show me that it's not one person that you say you can borrow from other teams to get this work done, that you have dedicated staff. I can't do this alone. In fact, I don't do any work. Don't tell my boss. I don't do anything. The people behind me are the ones that do all the work. They're the passionate, dedicated people that come in day after day. They certify firms. They monitor contracts. They get these classes done. They find opportunities for workforce candidates. They're the ones creating real change, right? So DE&I officers need staff. They need a budget. For those that are just starting off, I know DE&I can be intimidating. I would say start with low-hanging fruit. Be intentional about how you spend your money. Go look at the last year of purchases that you've done. Those low-hanging fruit of like supplies, that can go to easily can go to a diverse firm. There's diverse firms that provide everything out there. You just have to look. There's established databases already. You have the cities, the states, the county. Pick one. Figure out what that work category is that you want to be intentional about. Find them and let them bid alone on that. Let those companies bid among themselves for that. And don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. You're going to make mistakes along the way. Reach out to folks who are doing it, and we're happy to help walk you through how we set up our program, the mistakes that we made. But know that you're going to get criticism, right? When you start a program, you're going to get criticism, but that's okay. That's a learning opportunity, and it's better than doing nothing. So I would just say, just be intentional about how you spend your money and start with something and then grow from there.
And one thing, Kelly, that I would like to mention, the more diverse we are, the more fragmented as a society will become. Because that 360, that pie, it can only be divided so small. And suddenly someone is going to feel entitled because there another diverse group, then it's like, okay, now I'm going to grab from the middle of the pie. Now he's grabbing from everybody and he's making people unhappy. And I remember in the past, it was only, okay, carpenters or iron workers. Now it's carpenters, females, and this ethnicity live in the city, now iron workers. So it's hard to beat a job economically for everybody because we have to fit everybody and it's just cost. So I'm afraid that in the future, we're going to have so many groups that we don't know where we're going to put it in a project.
Jimmy, any other final
yeah.
comments?
Yes, I do. Early in my entrepreneurship career, I remembered I was asked to lead the Chicagoland AGC. We were called the Builders back then. And this is coming off the recession of 07, 08. And I mean, I was really early in my career. And another shout out, Stacy in the back, over 100-year organization that was struggling because of the recession in the marketplace. And she single-handedly, with everybody else that we brought on board, turned the organization around into what it is today and all the support that he does for general contractors in the Chicagoland area. And I always wondered back then, at first I thought they were setting me up because I go, okay, you give the black guy the job when it's going south. But I got a chance to work with some great people, Jeff Rady from McShane and Ken Edgedy out of Pepper, and I got to absorb so much from them as I worked on turning that organization around. And I think what I learned from it is to learn how to recognize talent before anybody else sees it. I think it's easy, we wait till you see rock stars and then we all want to go chase them because we recognize and we see it. I think you have to learn how to recognize talent before anybody else sees it. So if any contractor talks to Alisa, second over there, we're fighting tonight, don't touch my talent. But again, I think that's the issue. You have to, right? Not all stories are going to sound the same. Not the backgrounds are going to be the same. You have to be open to hearing and understanding something that you're not used to seeing and finding talent where it is. And I think moving forward, our industry is going to continue to change. And the organizations that are most diverse in the way they think, in the way they present, in the way they look, in the ability to harness the strength out of every individual are going to be the organizations of the future.
Awesome. I couldn't agree more. I'll tell you, this is the easiest group ever to moderate for. I think we should go on like a road show. I'll do any panel with you guys, but we can open up to questions now. I don't know if anybody has anything they'd like to ask the group. Yeah.
So thank you all for all your insight and everything. One of the things that we've had a lot of support from, I'm Quinn Franklin from Walsh Construction. We've had a lot of support from our ownership. I'm fortunate to be on a project where we've got a lot of support from the developer to develop some of the programs. And some of you have touched on it independently, on an individual level. We've been able to build into our subcontracts, we want you to have a community hire or sponsor someone into your union. And one of the things that we consistently run into is our union doesn't allow for that, or there's a very specific window or a very specific set of prerequisites for these amazing individuals that we find because of our partners like Hire 360 and Revolution Workshop. But our ability to get them to our subcontractors is stymied by union rules. And so I'm wondering if any of you have insight on an individual level of how to get amazing individuals into these unions. There are more progressive ones like the laborers and carpenters. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where it's a blind process by ironworkers. But there's others that, for various reasons, it's a lot more difficult.
I think for us, you're right. Some unions you're able to hire right off the street, and it's a lot easier. Our successes have come from the business itself. So, for example, when you have a business itself that's what they want to do, right? And so SCM, Plumbing Sean, will, that's what he wants to do. So he's always looking for, as soon as the union has an opening within the apprenticeship program, he begins to bring people in, right? I think the challenge sometimes is we wait till a project start, and then we're trying to hire when that project started, which is never in sync with when the unions are bringing in those apprentices places. So we've done some work with Hire 360, Revolution Workshop. It's a year-round thing that we do, so it's not just we wait till the project start. And I think that makes a difference if it's just part of what we do. A good example, we're working on a project on the west side. Young man comes up, labor, and he wanted to get a job with and at that point, the excavator was working. Excavator was gonna be there for about 6 weeks. This is early November, so we'll get you on board, you can work with the excavator. And he was smart enough to say, well, how long is the guy gonna be there? I said, 6 weeks. He goes, then I'm gonna be looking for work again. I said, what do you wanna do? He says, well, do you have work anywhere else? Well, we're working at the airport. If you're interested in driving, no problem. He was at the airport, I think it was there maybe 9 months. So I think so what we try to say is we use the entire work program in terms of where we hire. So I'm not just gonna go hire on the west side, on the south side, or on the east side. I'm hiring all the time, and I'm using all my resources to promote that, and I think that's the best way to get the most successes.
Yeah, I think that answer was right on. And also, as we mentioned, Hire 360 and Revolution Workshop, we work really closely with those unions trying to get people in. So we'd love to have Walsh more involved with Hire 360 in that respect to try to get some more people on those job sites. So please talk to Jay, who's standing next to the bar conveniently, to talk a little more about that too. But thanks for bringing that up. It's a great point.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, thank you for your insights. I really enjoyed the panel. So I have a question about salary equity. So any insights on what your companies or your organizations are doing in that? I mean, we know that women still, there's a gap, right, in salary gap, especially for the females. So maybe I think it's 78 cents to $1. So what are your organizations doing to bridge that gap?
So that's been a major topic for our Human Resources Department, to take a look at the industry trends and to make sure that we are being very mindful as to how we are creating salary equity in the business, because again, that becomes yet another barrier that makes it less attractive for females to enter into certain professions. We are seeing that, many women are mothers. They have to consider childcare and other needs and other costs. And so we want to make sure as a progressive company that we're very mindful about salaries. And we've done a series of studies across each of the spectrums for us, particularly internally in our program. We've also started an employee resource group, and that too was designed to make sure that there is a think tank internally made up of current employees that can help us be very strategic and competitive and mindful, because we want the best and the brightest on our team, and we want to make sure that we're creating a happy and wholesome environment for our employees. So that has been top of mind for our company.
So in our company, if there are two individuals, different genders, if they're doing the exact same job and they start this exact same day, 10 years or 5 years after, they will be making the same. It doesn't matter. So it's not a problem. We see that what you're doing is bringing money to the company, is bringing profit to the company. So we don't make that distinction as long as they're doing the same job and they're in the company for the same amount of time.
Any other comments?
Dan Allen with Cisco, we represent union contractors and union labor. Talking about just to answer some of your questions, and it's on the mind. So many efforts in the diversity field
Thank you.
Floors, next thing you're hiring the most diverse door, people representing door installers. Juan Pablo at CTA, I know it's your team behind there. You're coming and filming there, we're going out into diverse areas. You didn't have enough women on local night, they could have a CDL license. I'm like, okay, that's a high bid. What do? We think outside the box. Next thing, we're at bus terminals, talking to CTA bus drivers, giving them a leave of absence to take leave, to change careers. I mean, these events are filling these gaps where at record levels, like, talking about Sterling Bay, oh my gosh, having events out there, having minorities, having high schoolers come out there, everything you're doing off of that. Mike, you've been at it for a long time, inviting everybody and different minority candidates. So we come, we talk to high schoolers, we go out into diverse areas, we offer a lot of step up. In many of the trades, you're exactly right. Some of them you just can't step into. But at this point, there are so many resources that'll be in this building, and all the different groups. I'm not going to name them all because we'll all get in trouble, but we're now working together. And because there's only so much of the pie, like you said. Workforce development groups were in competition before. Oh no, we're going to come through mine because, and that is now dropped, and we're working together. So the more and more minorities are getting into the trades, they're going to attract more of their siblings and their friends and their brothers and their sons, and they're also going to be the best foremen, engineers, and owners. So what you guys do up here rocks. It's just the beginning of an earthquake that I think is going to just keep growing. So I'm really proud to be part of listening to all the accomplishments here.
Thank you, Dan. Cisco's been a big part of it, too. Thank you.
Go. Stacy.
I'm a graduate of the HBCU, North Carolina A&T, down in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I think in our office, I'm the only graduate from a HBCU, so.
Not true.
Oh, yeah, not true, no, not even, sorry. But for everyone else, how do you all, I know we don't have an HBCU here in Illinois, but how do you all find those other HBCUs to bring in? Chicago State, they just did it, okay. I'm wrong a lot. But, well, how are you all reaching out to those HBCUs to bring in that talent?
So, great question. We have a summer internship program, which is SB Connects. And last year, or 2 years ago, was our inaugural year of expanding and focusing on HBCUs. And so, historically black colleges and universities, I'm sorry. And so it's been remarkable to expose these students to the diversity of career pathways in commercial real estate and construction. And the intent there is to introduce them. They go through a 6-week paid internship program where they rotate between 10 of our departments. They go out to our active construction sites. They interface with our individual professional teams. And the whole point is for post-graduation, we now have a pool of talent to draw from. And so that is very important to us, and it's a program that we have expanded now. And last year we had 3 students from Howard, from Spelman, and from Clark. And so next year we are actually going to be in North Carolina because we have a project in Charlotte. So again, I just think it's so many different ways that we can create opportunities and pathways into audiences that, again, typically would not be considering this as a viable career pathway.
CTA has a robust internship program, both at the college level, but also at the high school level. I think this year we took in over, hopefully I don't get this number wrong, 200 One Summer Chicago interns, and gave them that 10 weeks of exposure of what it is like to work at CTA in many different departments, right? So some of those students I know that were in my department, some of them are going to HBCUs, and the message to them is, don't forget about us, right? When you're looking for an internship, apply to our college internship program. That is one of the best ways to get into CTA as an employee. we have both summer interns and year-round interns. So for those students that are here locally, they can take advantage of, it's reduced hours during the school year, but it's all paid, and you get great exposure into the different departments at CTA. So we really encourage, I know we have a team that does outreach, they communicate with all colleges and universities, but have really been intentional about how we target disinvested communities and make sure that they understand that there's opportunities at CTA and that there's representation at CTA. So when they get to the departments, they're gonna see folks that look like them doing jobs from bus operator all the way up to president, right? The president of CTA went to an HBCU. So we wanna make sure that they have that exposure, which is why we have those robust programs.
And I think it's a great opportunity to think outside the box. Again, our office is on 77th and Stony Island, and I remembered about 8, 9 years ago, we were looking for an accountant, project accountant. And I remembered going down to Chicago State, meeting with Professor Martin, who teaches at who's the dean of the accounting department, and I kind of explained to him what we're looking for. And we got someone who wasn't even thinking that construction was, accounting was a thing. Since then, I think 50% of all our accounting folks are from Chicago State. And the person we hired actually runs the entire accounting department right now. She's our director of accounting. So again, there's some really great talents. I know folks who go into the city college and they hire assistant project engineers out of there. Malik, who's actually our safety director, came out of city colleges. I mean, so they're just great talents. You just have to know and be open to. Yeah, we got a lot of Purdue guys. We get into it with those guys too. But it's okay to look outside the box and find talent.
I'm Jerry Harris with Gilbane, and I'm very happy to be serving on the CABC D&I committee as well. And I just want to thank, first off, the panel for your transparency and vulnerability and your sharing, because it's not often that we get groups of people that can talk and use language like black and white freely and comfortably without being insulted. So I want to applaud you for that. Then I want to ask, because I heard Mike say, and I think I heard more than one person say, it's really about putting your money where your mouth is. And so I'm feeling like there's a call to action here, because I see now, and thank you for inviting us here and having this here at the IFPCC offices, in the works. Because it's a call to action. Everybody can't do what Higher 360 is doing, but those who have money can contribute to this effort. And then all the black and brown people that I see now in my community, Chicago, I've been in Vegas for the past 16 years, so it's really breaking my heart to come home and see the devastation on the south side of this. And all the people, black and brown people that want jobs and want to get into this industry, get those jobs. So now I see Higher 360 here saying, we're here to help. I'm like, okay, well, I will do my part and send the people, say, go over there. And it will take those in this room and others contributing to this effort to then allow this to be a space where they can learn and grow and get that opportunity. And I'm going to keep pushing over here to hold them accountable to what they say and they don't do. That's all I can do. And hold out heavens that it holds. So again, I want to thank that and everybody involved in that. And your vein is committed and I am committed to my, right? And it's really an individual thing. Because when we talk about what's happening from the legal level and striking down affirmative action, that means that all of us on the individual level have to do what we can do to make the difference.
Great point.
Yeah.
Truly, it's just like Jimmy and all these others have been saying. It's no longer the corporations are going to do what they're going to do, the institutions are going to do what they're going to do. All of the structural, systemic racism that we have to overcome now, it's going to be on an individual basis for us to make a difference. So I'm saying, let's lock arms and do it.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank
I can start that. One, Dan Allen, who represents Cisco's, represented the unions and is extremely engaged in this, but most importantly, is Hire 360, and many of you may not know this, so I'm just giving you a little background, but Hire 360, what makes it really unique is the leadership or the structure, the organizational structure, is it is equally led by contractors, unions, and developers. It's those three are represented on the board equally, so that this is a dialogue that continues throughout the industry and that's what makes it unique. So this is really unusual. It's nowhere else in the country are contractors, unions, and developers. So Jonathan Jones was here earlier. I think he had to leave from the Carpenters Union is on our board. Mike Masaleo from the Chicago Building Trades Council is also on our board, and also the Chicago Federation of Labor. So I think it's really important that those are really, that they have a seat at the table, and they are extremely engaged and extremely involved. So this doesn't work with just contractors doing it. It doesn't work with just developers. It absolutely involves the unions. And Hire 360 is really a unique vehicle where we're all together sitting at the table trying to make this happen.
Because I personally believe in engagement in our hearts, and I just think there's a lot of ignorance out there, and once education is brought to, when we're having a conversation one-on-one, they get it. You know what I mean? And it's just like, just want to keep that information out.
I was so impressed when we started Hire 360 with, and I'm trying not to get myself in trouble here. I was a little bit cynical about what they would bring to the table, and I have been blown away with their engagement. It's really impressive with the amount of engagement they have. As a matter of fact, one of the byproducts of our group is the operating engineers have worked closely. They're working on, this is the first academic year, they're working with Hope Academy with a whole trades program. And this is all geared towards minority children and getting them engaged in the trades. And these are things that I don't think it's transformational for these unions to be engaged like that. So I think we're in a really good place with them. They have really stepped up, and I would be a harsh critic if they weren't, but they have really stepped up in this engagement.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. I'm concerned about like existing members. That's where I'm seeing.
About what, Donna?
Existing members, right, that have been in the trades for years and being welcomed.
Oh, yeah, okay, understood, yeah. Yeah, well, that starts on the job site. That's something. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Well, and the owner too, right? So one thing that we do at CTA is we do frequent site visits to the job site, and we don't just interview staff from DBEs, we interview staff that are out there, period. If you're working on one of our jobs, we'll pull you to the side for 2 or 3 minutes, interview you, and one of the questions we ask is, how's everything going? Are you, how are you being treated? And I know on the job site, it's hard to say, so-and-so is harassing me or this is happening. So we give them our card and say, if there's anything you need, you call us. We have an EEO unit that is dedicated to investigating, right, discrimination and harassment. So we partner with our EEO unit if anything ever happens on job sites. We've had incidents where someone has called and said, they're using this type of language on the job site and it's really uncomfortable. And we brought that to the next progress meeting and says, this has to stop now or EEO gets involved. And the next time we went out, we interviewed that same person and they thanked us. They said, thank you. So I think you can push onto the owners too to say, you all need to be holding contractors and subcontractors accountable to make sure that that's not happening on the work site.
We also have an ethics 1-800 number. Anyone can call anonymously and report anything, and I guarantee, I'm on the small chain of that, everything is investigated. Yeah.
Right.
No, some of it, Donna, to your point, it's a good point. Some of it is just ignorance, and it's sitting down with them and explaining that. And that's the thing, we have to make a call between HR and legal. What's the way to go with this? Sometimes it's just ignorance, and you're enlightening them, you're teaching them, and it's a learning moment.
Probably have time for one more question, if anyone else. Otherwise, me and Mike are gonna go over there and race each other.
You're the inspiring one. This is.
He was tired of me getting all the attention. Like, I gotta do something over here. But thank you, everyone. Joe, if you want to wrap it up?
Just some quick closing remarks. First, thank you again to our panel. Just scratching the tip of the iceberg on all the things that we can discuss in this, so hopefully there'll be more and more conversation as we continue forward. I know one of my big takeaways, and I think a lot of people here heard it as well, is that it really does start at the individual level. It's individual people making decisions to make this important. So the people that are in this room and the people that are in this room are talking to, that's where it all starts, and you start to see that groundswell. I also want to make sure that I thank our sponsors, Bully and Andrews,